We're going to open up our Bibles to Ephesians chapter 4, verse 31 and 32. We covered this text a few weeks ago, and we're just going to refresh on it a little bit. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 31 and 32. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, hath forgiven you. Let's pray. Our Father, Lord, I ask that you please watch over this message. Lord, I ask that you use this message to help some healing in this group of people, Lord. And I ask that you take it beyond just this group. But Lord, it's so important for us to understand forgiveness. It's so important for us to practice it and not just preach it and say we have it, but Lord, to really live it. Lord, I ask that you please watch over the heart of every member here today. Give them peace and comfort no matter what they're facing. And Lord, remind them that you are there and that you love them. And Lord, that you don't leave us and you don't forget us. And Lord, I thank you for this message you've laid on my heart. I ask that you please use it in your Son's holy name. We ask and we pray. Amen. So a few weeks ago, I preached a message called The Christian's Hidden Struggle. And as we've been going along this life of Christian, he's developing as a Christian, he's kind of growing, and we started with Christian character and then dealing with the enemies that he's going to face in his life. But now we're going to get to the personal things that he struggles with, that all of you sitting in the chair looking at me struggle with too. Now, yet last time we dealt with Christian, he was dealing with bitterness. He was dealing with that hidden struggle because bitterness sneaks up on you. You have it, you don't realize you have it, until finally it grows so much in you, you just become a sour person. You know, I meet people that are elderly, they're older, and they are just some of the meanest people in the world. It's like you got up and you sucked on lemons all morning, and then you want to come and tell me how mean I am. Now, the question is why? What happened over those 80, 90 years that got you to that point? And one woman told me God left me. She flat out said it. God's ignored me for the last 50 years. What do I have to be happy about? Wasn't that interesting? See, God does not leave us. And Christian, by the blessing of God, realizes some of this bitterness he had. See, he had friends kind of condemning him, and he had people criticizing words he said, and he made some choices that weren't great, and he did some sins, but he repented. And yet, of course, the people, they don't forgive him because we're high and mighty, and we can't forgive each other. And so he was growing some bitterness, and he realized that he started to deal with it. In dealing with bitterness, you have to be a forgiving spirit. And so Christian was struggling because that bitterness, it made his relationship suffer. His attitude, much like I just said, began to be trash. His physical health was breaking down. We tend to think that our mental status doesn't help our physical. Yes, it does. You find yourself in a state of depression, before long your body's all out of whack, your bones hurt, your muscles are sore. I mean, you talk to somebody that's worked their whole lives as a cop or in steel work or tree trimming that gets tossed down the trees all the time. You find yourself, if you don't have a good attitude about life, your body will ache even more. And so you see, he started to feel these physical things bothering him. And then he found out he could only see the negative in the world. As a Christian, we look at the media and we look at all these things and we find it hard to find something to be happy about. I mean, really, we do. Look at the degradation of people, how they treat each other, how we talk to one another, how, at UDF, I saw on the news story, who was it? Walgreens, I'm sorry, not UDF, Walgreens in Philadelphia had a mass burglary. Like 60 people ran in and just wiped the store out. My goodness, what has happened? What are those clerks there, the pharmacists who are getting yelled at about handing out pills, what are they going to do? They're terrified. And they're all kids. They're all in their teenage years. And yet that's becoming more and more consistent. So it's hard to see the good in the world. But the only way to battle this bitterness is to learning to forgive. And the title of this message is Christian's Healing Struggle. In his walk, he understands now that bitterness and forgiveness, unfortunately, they go hand in hand. Look back again at Ephesians 4:31. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And, so you have the polar opposite, and be kind one to another. You want to battle bitterness? Be kind. You want to battle bitterness? Be tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you. Now the word forgive. We're going to do some services on the King James, and I found out a bunch of new information that kind of startles me, because all these new versions are getting even more corrupted and twisted. And the newest versions are removing all genders. So there's no more man and woman. It's they and them, and what do you do with the goats and the sacrifices? So PETA threw a fit years and years ago about we can't have sacrifices, so they're trying to remove the sacrifices. And it's just, they're vowing it every whim. And so there's a new version coming out that has not yet been titled, but somebody has found some of the changes they're trying to make, and they're really getting into going after the blood. Get rid of the blood. That's what they want to do. And so does it really matter? Well, in our King James Bible, the word forgive does matter. The word forgive is used 56 times throughout the Bible, forgiven 42 times, and forgiveness 7. Now that was interesting in counting. That took a while. But I wanted to know, because it's such a crux of what we believe. It is so vital to a proper Christian life. In the Greek, it's used in the verb sense, aphemi. This means to send forth or to put away. And so this denotes, in this context, denotes the remittance or forgiveness of, say, a debt, as you would see in Matthew 6:12, 18, 27, and 32. But it also means to remit sin. Matthew 9:2, 5, 6, 12, 31, 32, Acts 8:22, Romans 4:7, James 5:15, 1 John 1:9 to 12. That's when you see aphemi. Now the one here in Ephesians 4:32 is charizomai. Charisma. This means to bestow a favor unconditionally, used in the act of forgiveness. And this is also used in Colossians 2:13, 3:13, Luke 7, 42, 43, 2 Corinthians 2:7, 10, and 12:13. So you see there's two different types. You can remit a debt by saying, okay, yeah, but the act of forgiving, that's different. Now forgiveness, as we all know, it's hard work. It's easy to hold a grudge. It's easy to get bitter. It's easy to get mad. It's easy to say, I'm done with you. I want nothing to do with you. Take the woman that was bitten by a dog. She was bitten by a dog, and she goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, you're about to succumb to hydrophobia. Now, I didn't know what hydrophobia was. Do you know, anybody know what hydrophobia is? It's fear of water. It's a symptom of rabies. Yeah, and it's a symptom of rabies only in humans. That's strange. That disease, apparently in humans, makes you scared of water. Well, isn't that an interesting fear to have? We're talking about claustrophobia. We're scared of water. Good luck going out in Ohio. It rained all June. But you see, she was bitten, and the doctor said, hey, listen, because you're getting ready to have this, obviously you have rabies, and this isn't a time when they couldn't treat it as well as they can today. And so he says, what's your best bet is to go and do your last will and testament. Go ahead and deal with all that, get it done before this really sets in. And so he hands her a piece of paper. He says, I don't know how long you got, because the symptoms are beginning right away. He hands her a piece of paper, and she begins to write. And she's taking her time, and he doesn't see a whole lot of writing, but a lot of time. And he looks at her and says, what are you doing? Are you writing your last will? And she goes, no, I'm writing the name of everybody I'm going to leave here and bite. You see? She had bitterness. She didn't have this forgiving spirit. John Oglethorpe was talking to John Wesley, and he says this, I will never forgive. John Wesley, in his wise reply, said, sir, I hope you never sin. Because if you can't forgive, you better be sinless. I don't know how to say this guy's name. It's a French name from 1665, so I won't butcher it, but it says La Rochefoucauld. Okay? His quote says, we forgive to the extent that we love. Isn't that how true? When you really love somebody, you're willing to look past a lot of failures, a lot of faults. If you don't love somebody, the littlest thing will make you just, I'm done. I want nothing to do with it. And sadly, Thomas Adams makes a great statement here. He said, he that demands mercy and shows none ruins the bridge over which he himself must pass. See, there are two types of forgiveness. There's there's divine forgiveness, God and man. We can see that in the fall of man, Adam and Eve. God could have just wiped him or Mary's out. You're done. I don't care nothing about you. You didn't listen to me. You took of the fruit. You're done. Bye. See ya. I created you. This is my dad used to say, I brought you in this world to take you out. That kind of mindset. But God didn't do that. He showed grace. Well, he kicked him out of the Garden of Eden. Yeah. But he provided them clothes. He provided them a way to make food. He provided them a way to make sacrifices. Then he showed grace upon people. So, divine forgiveness. What about Noah? We were just talking about that. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. As God looked across the human landscape, it was so bad that only one man found grace. Not his wife. He didn't have kids yet. One man. Because he wanted to live righteously. Make a good decision. Serve the Lord. And because of that one man doing that, you and I are all here today. Then what about Abraham? Chosen. The covenant was made. His father was an idol worshiper. He's an Ur of Chaldees, and he says, go, be with the sand fleas. Okay, I'm going. I hear this voice, and I know I need to listen to it. And he went. But the biggest divine forgiveness, Christ on the cross. Right. Without that, we have it all. There's nothing we can do to save ourselves. But then you have human, and that's what I want to deal with today. Man-to-man forgiveness. There are great examples of man-to-man forgiveness. Joseph and his brothers, Genesis 45, 1 through 15, Genesis 50, 15 through 21. Then you have Moses dealing with the people of Israel, which, man, that must have been a headache. And Exodus 32, 11 through 14, and 30 through 33. And then even his sister. Remember when his sister gave him some grief and he forgave her? That was Numbers 12, 11 through 13. And then we talk about David. David having to deal with forgiving Absalom, 2 Samuel 14, 21, and 33. What about Saul? 1 Samuel, and Saul. There's a lot of examples of Saul. But 1 Samuel 24, 10 through 12, 26, 9, 23, and then 2 Samuel 1, 14 through 7. I'm sorry, 14 through 17. And then Shimei, 2 Samuel 19. And then, of course, Solomon and Adoniah, 1 Kings 1, 52. This is where we struggle. This right here. Forgiving our brother. Really, it's because we don't want to. Our human nature does not want to forgive. Because it's hard. It means you have to have had something wrong done to you and be willing to look past it. And treat that person exactly as you did before they did the wrong. That's the difficulty. You know, a good marriage is often said, a good marriage is a marriage between two forgiving people. If you can't forgive one another, what do you have? Now, point number one, the road to trouble. If you would, please turn in your Bibles to Genesis chapter 25. We're going to visit a familiar story of forgiveness. Of course, I'm speaking of Jacob and Esau. Now, any of you that have siblings, I see two up here. I have one. I need to talk about that here. But you see, I've got siblings, and any of you that have siblings know there's a different kind of strife when it comes to a sibling. You get out in the world, you can shut people away, you can delete their name out of the phone, at least not as I was a teen, because all I had was a pager. But now you can wipe their contact information out. You don't have to pick up the phone to get caller ID. You don't have to take a guess anymore who's calling. But yet, when it's a sibling, you can't get away from it. You have to learn from it. And so when you're dealing with Jacob and Esau, let's take a look at the beginnings of this relationship. Genesis chapter 25, verse 19. And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begat Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Paddan-aram, the sister to Laban the Syrian. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife, because she was barren. And the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. And the children struggled together within her. Notice, I like that. They're already arguing within her. The children struggled within her. And she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. Notice, that's smart. Ask God what's going on. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. Now that's important. You see, the strife, before they're even taking their first breaths, the strife has already begun. Now, verse 24. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her room. And the first came out, all were out red, all over like a hairy garment. They called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel. And his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, and a man of the field. And Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau, because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Now look at this. We jump from the birth to elder years. What happened in between? How many stripes and troubles? I mean, we see the consequences when there's no forgiveness. Cain and Abel. Cain slew his brother over pride, over envy, over jealousy. He decided enough was enough and killed him in the field, and then had the nerve to say, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Yes, you were. But you see, these 2 came out at the same time. If you've ever dealt with twins or talked to twins, boy, they can be irritable to each other. "I'm older by 3 seconds. You're not really older." "Yes, I am." I've heard that argument before. Really? Does it really matter? But they do. And so you see, there's strife and there's trouble. And we don't get to see this visage of these older men until we get to verse 29. And God reveals some heart. Now let's take a look at verse 29. And Jacob saw pottage, and Esau came from the field, because he was out there hunting, and he was faint. And Esau said to Jacob, "Feed me, I pray thee, with the same red pottage, for I am faint." Therefore his name was called Edom. Verse 31, and Jacob said, "Sell me this day thy birthright." Now that's interesting. Why did he do that? How long had he been thinking about getting the birthright? Now the birthright, as we know, was important. It provided advantages and privileges. It was also full of special responsibilities. It was given to the firstborn. He was the object of special affection to his parents. He received a double portion of the estate, and he was also considered, especially in the absence of the father, the head of the family, which means it was necessary for him to provide, him to take care of, him to protect. So back then it was important. Now we have a bunch of feminine men that don't want to do any of that. But you see that Esau, it wasn't that important. Because look at what he does next, verse 33. Or 32, I'm sorry. And Esau said, "Behold, I'm at the point to die." Now, was he really? No. "And what profit shall this birthright do to me?" Well, boy, you were willing to throw away all the advantages you were going to be getting. Verse 33, and Jacob said, "Swear to me this day." And he swore to him. And he sold his birthright unto Jacob. Now, how long did Esau consider that? See, Jacob had to have been plotting for quite a while. We know his name means supplanter. And so it's important to understand, this was not something that just came to whim all of a sudden. He had been thinking about it. And then you get to Esau. How long was Esau sitting there looking at that porridge or pottage or whatever it was that was being cooked, and he was smelling it, and all of a sudden, okay, that's all it meant to him? That's all it meant to him, that birthright. Our military, if memory serves me accurately, used to not let the firstborn son go to war if he was the only son, to continue the bloodline. I don't know if they still do that, but I was told that they did that back in the 1800s because so many boys were dying that they couldn't keep the bloodlines going of the family, the lineage. Because we lost so many men, and they were young, 14, 15, 16. They didn't have families at that time. And so we saw a need to understand what that birthright meant, that you were the firstborn. You were looked better upon. And here Esau gives it away. Verse 34, then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Now, when we consider that, that's bad enough. When you talk about the Israelite custom, the birthright was important. It was very important. It still is today to some people. Some customs, that's vital to be the firstborn. And I mean, look at China, they would only allow you to have a son.
Yep.
Now, they didn't see the ramifications coming after that, but that's what they would only allow. So you see, they saw the necessity. Esau despised his birthright according to God. But that's not the worst that Jacob does. You see, Esau was almost on an island by himself. Now, I know in Romans it says, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. I understand that.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel bad for Esau. Because it wasn't just his brother plotting against him. It was also his mother. So Genesis 27, 1 through 46. We're going to break this down for time. We won't read every verse. But there's a famine in the land. I'm sorry, I'm in chapter 26. It helps if I flip my page to get to the right chapter. And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, his eyes were dim. So he's getting older. His eyes are going blind. And it's time to give out that blessing. That blessing, it's a prophetic blessing. It's a blessing of the future of his children. And it was going to go to Esau. Because remember, Isaac loved Esau. Esau was the manly man, he was the hunter, he was the kind of man that Isaac could get behind. Yeah, this is my boy. And Rebekah, she loved Jacob. Now Jacob was the softer, plain one. He was like, I don't know, the video gamer in the group. He was the plainer one. He didn't want to go out there and hunt and do that kind of stuff. He was more of the homebody, the more feminine of the two. And so Jacob is obvious. I mean, he's been planning. He took the birthright. He had already planned that. We don't know if Rebekah was involved in that. She might have been. We don't know for certain. But then we get to this. So the blessing is about to come from Isaac. And Isaac sends Esau out. Go cook. I want some of your food. Go cook. Go bring me something. And so Esau goes out and he goes to hunt. Now let's take a look at chapter 27, verse 5. And when Rebekah heard when Isaac spake to Esau, his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt for venison. And you bring it, and Rebekah spake unto Jacob her son, saying, Behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother, saying, Bring me venison, and make me savory meat, that I may eat, and bless thee before the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. Go now to the flock, and fetch me from thence 2 good kids of the goats. And I will make them savory meat for thy father, such as he loveth. Look at that plotting. So it's not just Esau there against, but also Isaac. Isaac had a desire. Now, of course, we know it's of God. I understand. But look at the human, the man-to-man relationship here. Rebekah loved Isaac. But in this moment, she's only thinking of Jacob. I will help you deceive your dad to get you that blessing. So when that struggle was in her womb, she helped foster the word of God. She helped, stoke the flames, if you will. And so now we get Genesis chapter 27, 1 through 29. We have this whole setup where Isaac goes in. He's there and he's ready for the meat. And he covers himself in the hair and he goes in and he tries to talk. And his dad recognizes his voice. And so he tries to change it up a little bit. And he's doing everything he can to basically destroy the credibility of his dad, to deceive him. And he goes in, and Isaac is deceived. And he gives the blessing to Jacob. But then you have Esau coming home, and that's where we're going to come into. Verse 30. And it came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from hunting. And he also had made savory meat. So in this time he had already hunted, killed, and produced the meat, and it was ready to be brought in. And he brought it unto his father, and said unto his father, Let my father arise, and eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac his father said to him, Who art thou? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn, Esau. Now why is he worried about firstborn here? He gave away his birthright.
Right.
But he still wants the blessing. See, they knew what the blessing meant. They knew how important that was. Verse 33, And Isaac trembled very exceedingly and said, Who? Where is he that hath taken venison and brought it to me, and I have eaten all before thou camest, and have blessed him? Yea, and he shall be blessed. See, he didn't even know it was his other son.
Yeah.
He was still confused. Now he trembled exceedingly, because who did I bless? That would be like, Curtis and Michelle, they're getting ready to cash out all their retirement, their 401k, they're going to give it to you. Huh? Yeah, they offer to give it to them, but then she writes a check behind his back and gives it to you. And then he's going, what? Why don't they have a check? Who do we give it to? You see, he was confused. He had no idea who he had just given that blessing to. That meant so much to Isaac, and now he's been deceived. More strife in the home. Now, as we consider what is happening, I want you in your mind to think of a pot of water on your stove. When you put that pot of water on your stove, and you turn the heat on, nothing really happens with water right away. You might be sloshing around because you moved the pot. But after a few minutes, that water's jumping all over the place. That's the relationship between these four people. It started with a little bit of strife in the womb. And now it's like the water getting ready to boil over the edge. And Esau's angry. Maybe even justifiably. We don't know. But he's angry. Now, verse 34. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry and said unto his father, Bless me, even me also, O my father. And he said, Thy brother came in with subtlety, so now he's figured it out, and hath taken away thy blessing. And he said, Is not he rightly named Jacob? For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, now he remembers, and behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. And he said, Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, Behold, I have made him thy Lord, and all this, brethren, have I given to him for servants, and with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Now, notice the struggle here. He's hurting. He's broken. He's angry. Now let's take a look at what Esau's really feeling. Verse 41. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, The days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. You see how pot's now boiled over. He's ready to murder his brother just like him. But see, Rebekah's still involved. And she hears of Esau's anger. And she says, No, we need to get Jacob out of here. I love him and I don't want him dead. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to go into the land of my kindred. You're going to go to Laban. And he's going to take care of you. You can go and spend a few days there. And then once Esau's rage has been taken down and he's calmed down, he's gotten over and had his sips of coffee, you can come back and he'll be all relaxed. Don't worry about it. That's not what happens, is it? You see, the life was so troubled, it now brings point number 2. Worlds apart. You see, that trouble grew and there was no reconciliation, there was no forgiveness. Why wasn't there immediate forgiveness? Because they didn't have forgiving spirits. They were too busy trying to hurt each other. They were too busy trying to supplant one another and to get their own little plan going. They were so busy trying to deceive and manipulate the situation outside of Isaac and outside of Esau. So who are the 2? Rebekah and Jacob. And now we get to chapter 28, verse 1. And Isaac called Jacob. You see, Rebekah's now gone to Isaac and said, Look, we need to get him out of here. He's going to be killed. So Isaac called Jacob, verse 1, and blessed him and charged him and said unto him, Thou shalt not take the wife of the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Paddan-aram, to the house of Bethuel thy mother's father, and take thee away from thence of the daughters of Laban thy mother's brother. And God Almighty bless thee, and make thee fruitful and multiply thee, that thou mayest be a multitude of people, and give thee the blessing of Abraham to thee, and to thy seed with thee, that thou mayest inherit the land wherein thou art a stranger, which God gave unto Abraham. Verse 5, And Isaac sent away Jacob, and he went to Paddan-aram unto Laban, son of Bethuel the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob and Esau's mother. Now, verse 6 through 9, we see an instance where Esau kind of shows his true colors too. You see, he sees that Isaac does not like the fact that he's particular about who you're going to marry. Go marry of our kindred. And so Esau intentionally does the opposite and goes out to the rebels. He goes out to the people that his parents would not have approved of. And so now we see a little bit of what's in Esau's heart, because he's still not forgiving. He's still angry. He's still bitter. And so now let's look back. You can hold your place there, please, in Genesis 28, but flip back to Ephesians chapter 4. Let's look back again at verse 31. Brother Tim, are you there by chance? Can you read that for me? Ephesians 4:31.
Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you, all malice.
You see, trouble, sin, anger, jealousy, when they're all unchecked, all they do between each other is foster chasms. Like miniature earthquakes, they separate us more and more and more. If I was to take a poll of all of you and ask you, was there one friend during your teenage years that you had that you came to a crossroads with, and now you don't even talk to them? Why? Think back about it. Ask yourself why. I have a lifelong friend that I haven't talked to in years, and I need to make the first move, but I still don't know why we stopped talking. I've never gotten a clear answer. What happened? Did I do something? You see, when a forgiving spirit's involved, you can deal with those problems right away. Now, sometimes it's a better thing that that person's out of your life, but not always. Sometimes we lose good people because our pride and our envy and our Esau's rage, if you want to call it that, get too involved, and we won't forgive, even if that person we're dealing with is repentant. See, Jacob and Esau, they're being split by Isaac. With all this trouble between brothers, it becomes a large divide, not just by years, but by miles. You see, Esau was in Beersheba, and Jacob was sent to Haran to be with Laban. I started looking at maps and I tried to find exactly of course we don't know the exact path he took, but it's estimated that he traveled approximately 550 miles away between those two places. Now think about that. In order to be safe, he traveled 550 miles from his family. You're not traveling to be safe, but you're traveling a pretty far distance away from your family. You're not talking. Remember I told you, don't isolate. Make sure you keep contact. You see, Jacob got isolated up there. And then he finds himself in Jacob's trouble. Then he finds himself alone with God. And now he starts realizing that I will get him what I deserve. Because I've spent my whole life trying to deceive everyone. And so now we have 550 miles in 20 years. 20 years of time was taken between these two brothers. Now, if you have siblings or you have close family, imagine that. Being separated from your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister for 20 years because of decisions you made, choices that you made. What if forgiveness had been in front of their minds? The old statement, he who forgives ends the quarrel. Remember what I said when we talked about bitter heart. When you find forgiveness, it's the restoration of fellowship. That's what we need in our Christian walk. And if we're alone, we are an open target for Satan. We know that. We need fellowship. So what had been lost? Well, 20 years of time. What about all the births? I imagine you got a young child coming real soon. You're ready, I'm sure. What if she wasn't here? You're not here. You miss her. She's 20 years old by the time you see her. Right? Yes, that's correct. 20 years. There's so much that is lost in that time between these two brothers. No forgiveness. You see, not just between brothers, but Jacob also lost his mother for 20 years. lost his father. I can't tell you what I would do to have a few more years with my dad. Brother Tim, what would you do? Just have a few more years. All the things you would try to make right. All the mistakes you'd say, I'm sorry. 20 years he lost. Point number 3, the road to redemption. Please turn me back in your Bibles to Genesis chapter 32. So Jacob goes through Jacob's trouble. He's tricked by Laban. He gets the ugly stepsister first that he didn't want. Then he gets the one that he really wanted. And then he's tricked into years of labor. And so 20 years later, he's finally ready to go home. And he sees that Laban's countenance is turned against him. There's trickery going on. And so the supplanter is being supplanted. Now he's kind of getting a taste of his own medicine. And we as human beings, we love that, don't we? We love when the bad guy finally gets his. That's what we want. It's human nature. But Jacob finally says, okay, it's time for me to go home. And so chapter 32, verse 1, we get to that point where he's on his way. That Rebekah stole some images, and Laban chased him down, and they've made a deal. They finally come to an agreement, and so now he's ready to go back his way. Verse 1, and Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, this is God's host, and he called the name of that place Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau. So notice what's right now on his mind. That brother from 20 years ago that wanted to kill me. Jacob never forgot what he did. You see, when you're not a forgiving type of person, you don't even forgive yourself. That's one of the harder things for people to do. To forgive themselves. 20 years, what he did sat back in his mind. Can you imagine as he's dealing with Laban and the trickery comes for 7 years of labor, he's going, you know what? Is this all my fault? How many times do we do that? That I deserve this because of what I did. But yet he's on his way back. And Esau is on his mind. And so he sends messengers to Esau, verse 3, the brother unto the land, his brother unto the land of Seir, the country of Edom. Verse 4, and he commanded them, saying, thus shall ye speak unto my lord Esau, thy servant Jacob, saith thus, I have sojourned with Laban, and stayed there until now. And I have oxen, and asses, and flocks, and men servants, and women servants, and I have sent to tell my Lord, notice how he speaks of Esau, my Lord, that I may find grace in thy sight. Thank God for grace. You see, we saw grace. Didn't we? It's the only way you're saved. Without the grace of God, there is no hope. And now here Jacob's doing the same thing. He wants grace from his brother. Please forgive me for what I have done. But notice the context he puts in. I have servants and servants, and I have things. He's not doing that privately. He's saying, hey, look, God's taking care of me. I've got gifts to give me. So let's take a look at that. So Esau is still on his mind. Now let's finish that off, verse 6. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, 400 men with him. Oh boy, what did Jacob feel in that one? Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him in the flocks and herds and the camels into 2 bands, and he said, if Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. So he's making a plan. If half my people die, I still have half.
50-50.
Exactly. But notice he still thinks Esau's ready to kill him. He believes Esau's not let go of what happened 20 years ago. Then we get to Genesis 9 through 12. In prayer, Jacob reveals his fear. Verse 11, we'll read that. It says, deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, and from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me, and the mother with the children. And in that context, he is speaking of all his kids. And thou sayest, I will surely do thee good, and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. And so then he stays and he lodges. And so from 13 to 23, he prepares all these gifts. And you can read that on your own time, but you see verse 14, 15, 16, he's dividing up all these gifts because he wants to give a gift to Esau. See, he thinks that just providing this gift, much as like, if somebody believes that they can win their own salvation by works, here, let me give you all these things, and that will bring forth your forgiveness. Thus, repentance. But see, he's still mischaracterizing and misjudging his brother. He doesn't know what Esau's really feeling. He has no idea. So in preparing all these gifts, Genesis 32, 13 through 23, he's ready finally to go meet his brother. Now, in all this, we never get a picture of Esau's heart. The only image we get of Esau is that, hey, he's coming to 400 horsemen. If you and I heard that too, you'd be thinking the same thing Jacob did. Oh boy, where's my sword? Can I run faster than him? It's kind of funny. I've got nephews that are a little bit younger. They were born late in life to my uncle. And we were talking on around the 4th of July. The older brother's a couple of years older than the younger brother. Now, the older brother's very theatrical. He's got the personality of theater. The younger brother is very sporty. He's been able to shoot the basketball when the older brother can't even hit the backboard. And it's just that's kind of how they work. He's got the brains, theater, and the other one's got the sports. And so the older one's a little bit taller, about a head taller or so than the younger brother. And the younger brother whipped him in a race just recently. For the first time, the younger brother outranked him. My uncle said, boy, was he angry. That's what Jacob's saying right now. I still have the blessing. I still have the birthright. He's never forgiven me, has he? So now we get to Genesis chapter 32, verse 24 through 32. Jacob wrestles with God, and we know that story. He gets alone with God, and he's begging God for help and blessings and just guidance. But then we get to chapter 33, and this is the important chapter, chapter 33. We finally get to the road to redemption, forgiveness. Chapter 33, verse 1. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men, and he divided the children unto Leah and unto Rachel and unto the two handmaids. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost. Boy, I love you the most. And Leah and her children after. And then Rachel and Joseph, notice the only two, and the hindermost. Well, we know where his love really was, and God made that very clear. God showed us through Jacob's love that Rachel was his darling bride. But how did that make Bilhah and Zilpah feel? Oh boy, we're right in front. We got 400 men coming to us. He loves us so much.
Yeah, I love you first.
Verse 3, and he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times. So Jacob runs forward, bowing himself 7 times till he came near to his brother. Notice that, the bowing. I remember when I got saved and I was young, I was 8 years old, but God challenged me over my youth. There were times when I was not dealing with my sin like I should. And the only time I ever felt real peace about it was when I was on my knees, bowed in prayer, asking for forgiveness. The only time I felt like I really had it. And here Jacob is bowing to Esau, please forgive me, we respect you, we love you, please don't kill us. Verse 4, and Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Now we see Esau's heart. Verse 5, he lifted up his eyes and saw the woman and the children and said, who are those with thee? And he said, the children which God hath graciously given thy servant. Verse 6, then the handmaids came near, they and their children, and bowed themselves, and Leah also with her children came near and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near and Rachel and bowed themselves. Now, Kyle Walker, would you please read 8 through 11 for me?
And he said, what meanest thou all this which I met? And he said, there are to find grace in thy sight, the sight of my Lord. And Esau said, I have enough, my brother, keep thou hast unto thyself. And Jacob said, nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, and receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took him.
And he said to him, let us take our journey and let us go, and I will go before thee. And he said, Esau speaking unto him, Jacob speaking to Esau, my Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds with young are with me, and if men should overdrive them one day, and all the flocks will die, let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly according as the cattle goeth before me, and the children be able to endure, until I come unto my Lord unto Seir. And Esau said, let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, what needeth it? Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way into Seir, and Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him an house, and made booths for his cattle, and therefore the name of the place was called Succoth. Now, to give you a little context of the setup, we know that Jacob's sons are the 12 tribes, correct? And so now, if you want to look at how he set these two people up, the first two wives are Bilhah and Zilpah. Unto Bilhah was born Dan and Naphtali. Unto Zilpah was born Gad and Asher. Then you have Leah. Now Leah had the most sons. She had Reuben, Simeon. You want me to repeat so you can write them down? Okay. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Then in the back, Rachel and Joseph. And then of course we have Joseph's story. But see, Benjamin wasn't there yet. Benjamin wasn't born until Genesis 35:18. Now, forgiveness is a two-way street, whether we like it or not. We have to forgive and we have to ask for forgiveness. That's important. So looking at these two men, Jacob and Esau, in Genesis chapter 33, let's look at how they behaved. Jacob sent messengers and gifts, Genesis 32, 1-8. Bowed 7 times, 33:3. Sent his wife and children, they bowed, 33:6-7. Begging for him to take the gifts, 33:10-11. And then please don't make us go on this journey. Let us wait because I'm worried about my children and my flocks, 33:13-14. Now notice Esau, the boy that wanted to kill his brother. This is how he behaved himself. In verse 4 of chapter 33, he ran. He embraced his brother. And he wept. 20 years of built-up loss. Who are these? Verse 5. Who are all these kids? Are they yours? You see her for the first time. Is that my grandbaby? But you're going to be there. He wasn't. So he gets to see all these little ankle biters running around. They're my nephews. Those are just the sons that we know of. Then you have, why not take my wife? Why are you trying to give me your gifts? Verses 8 and 9, I don't need it. Don't worry about your gifts. I'm good. Keep your stuff. I don't need it. Then he finally took it, verse 11. Okay, fine, you want I'll take the gifts. It's okay. I don't need your stuff. Let's journey together, verse 12. That's important. So we go from verse 4, hugging, loving, and embracing his brother. You want to travel together? It's been 20 years since we've gotten to ride a camel or a donkey. We haven't had a good conversation in 20 years. Okay, you can't travel with me, I get it. I brought 400 guys. Let me leave them. They're good with the sword. They're not about. They can protect your kids. Verse 15. His heart was all about his brother. See, in this moment, Esau had forgiven his brother years ago. It was all coming out right now. That's my brother. Well, it could have been avoided if the spirit of forgiveness was first in their lives. It was said of this, an unforgiving spirit. There was a child walking down the street, and a dog was barking, and it scared the child, and the man saw this, and he came walking up to the child, and he said, okay, it's okay, the dog stopped barking, we can go across the street. And the little child said, no, it's the look in his eyes. He's got a bad spirit. How many times are Christians like that? We may not be barking, but inside we're angry. We're unforgiving. See, she wasn't worried about the bark. She was worried about the bite. That she would not cross the dog's path. We can't be the dog. We must be a forgiving people. Remember what Christ promised us. Persecution is going to come. If you don't have forgiveness in your heart now, how are you going to be able to forgive then? How would you be able to do it? Dietrich Bonhoeffer did. beliefs, but he preached in the jails, he taught. Richard Wurmbrand, he figured out how to give the gospel through Morse code in a prison. Talking to soldiers. They made him crawl across the floor on bare knees and broken glass. Kept telling his wife had been murdered, telling his wife that he'd been murdered, and yet he still forgave. They beat him to a bloody pulp one day and threw him back into prison because he was preaching the gospel. And he was speaking out. And they beat him to a bloody pulp, they threw him back in, and they said, "Are you okay? You got to stop." And he says, "Nope." And he stands back up and begins to preach again. Barely can move his jaw. That's what was important to him. And he said, "My number one forgiving is to my captors. They're the ones that I forgive." Because he realized they were just soldiers doing what they were told to do. They didn't understand. And yet we see Christians today that can't forgive if you nick their car. My car speared the Magnus's car in the parking lot. See, it fell out of gear and it rolled down and drove my head right into the rear end of their car. Thankfully, they decided to park where my car wouldn't fall down into a bigger ditch and I'd have to get it towed. See, we looked at each other and said, "Oh, don't worry about it." I didn't worry about it. He didn't worry about it. Guess what? Insurance covered it. It was fixed right away. Well, not right away, but close. But you see, what would that have done if neither one of us had a forgiving spirit? We could have been really angry at each other. I wasn't even in the car. He had to come into the church to get me. So as we begin to close, a Christian must learn how to forgive and must ask forgiveness because it is a two-way street. There was a pastor dealing with a very difficult church member and saw that this church member was just angry at another. And he went to her and said, "Look, you got an unforgiving spirit. You need to knock it off." And she said, "Well, I'll forgive, but I'll never work with that person again." And I love the pastor's reply. Is that how you want God to be? He'll forgive you, but he'll never touch you again. He'll never talk to you again. He'll never work in your life. He'll forgive you this time, but I'm done with you. No, we don't want God to be that way. That's how we behave. Luke 6:37 says this, and it fits Matthew chapter 7, but Luke 6:37. Give me a few minutes to get there. It says, "Judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven." Matthew 6, verse 14 and 15 says this, "For if ye forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if ye forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses." What a warning that is. You're not willing to forgive, why should the Father forgive you? And that's what we all want. We want forgiveness. And then we'll finish up with Colossians chapter 3, verse 12. Colossians chapter 3, verse 12. In this point, context. Colossians 3, verse 12, it says this, "Put on therefore as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another, and forgiving one another. If any man have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do ye." But I know what you're thinking. What if they're my enemy? What if they've caused me so much trouble? Well, Esau sought to kill, and so did Saul. And both David and Jacob were forgiven. See, forgiveness transcends all boundaries, even our enemies. Exodus chapter 23, you don't have to flip there. But Exodus chapter 23, I would ask that you flip to Romans chapter 12. Exodus chapter 23. Exodus chapter 23, verse 4 and 5 says this, "If thou meet thine enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again. If thou see the ass of him that hateth thee lying under his burden, wouldst forbear to help him, thou shalt surely help him with him. message says, if you meet your enemies, ox or ass, you need help. You need to help. It doesn't matter that they're your enemy. That's a forgiving spirit. Proverbs 19:11 says this, the discretion of a man deferreth his anger, and it is his glory to pass over a transgression. Proverbs 24:17 and 18 says this, rejoice not when thine enemy falleth, and let not thine heart be glad when he stumbleth, lest the Lord see it, and it displease him, and he turn away his wrath from thee. Matthew 5:7 says, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Matthew 5:39-49 and Luke 6:27-34 deals with the attitude of forgiveness. You want to do these things and you think you're so great? You have no forgiving spirit. What makes you so great? Then Romans chapter 12. We're going to read verse 14. Romans chapter 12, verse 14, it says this, bless them which persecute you, bless and curse not. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. Be of the same mind one toward another. Mind not high things, but condescend to man of low estate. And be not wise in your own conceit. Recompense to man, notice that what I said, recompense to no man, evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men, if it be possible, as much light in you, live peaceably with all men. You can't live peaceably if you're not going to be forgiven. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. When there's an enemy, let God hear him, just forgive. For a proper Christian life, forgiveness is an absolute necessity. For a peaceful Christian life, it's like food. See, we see so many Christians in turmoil because they can't let go of the past. They can't let go of the little things that have happened over time. How can you serve God in the right heart? God was willing to give his life on the cross to save you and forgive you of your sins. We can't do the same. You all are familiar with this story, and this will be our closing. John chapter 8. You can flip there if you like to see the context. John chapter 8. This is the story of the woman getting into adultery. Now, this is one of those stories when we don't see the total context of it. It's important because who is throwing this woman into this turmoil? It's the Pharisees, the religious people. John chapter 8, verses 3 through 11. It's the scribes and Pharisees you see in chapter 8, verses 3. And here's what they do. They find this woman and they see that under the Old Testament law, see, they were trying to set Jesus up for failure. They were trying to trick him and trying to get him, because they're always looking for something to accuse him of. And so you see, they bring this woman and she's given into the sin of adultery. And according to Old Testament law, the Ten Commandments, Exodus 20:14, Deuteronomy 5:18, and then of course Leviticus 20:10, she's to be put to death. But Deuteronomy 17:6 and 19:15 requires 2 or 3 witnesses. That's important to remember that. So you see Jesus is there, and they bring this woman, they throw her down. I'm sure the way that they brought her in was some of the most ravaging ways possible. Who knows if they carried her by the back of her hair, but they were just brutal to her, and they threw her down in front of him. And he's looking at the situation, and he kneels down, and he begins to write in the sand. Now, many have contextualized that this was the Ten Commandments that he wrote. It does not record that, but they believe that this could be what he was writing. Because what are those Ten Commandments? I mean, they're going back to that, thou shalt not commit adultery. And what is the punishment for adultery? It was death. So they expected him to be picking up a stone because he said he was a priest, he was the Messiah, and according to their thoughts, he needed to follow that Old Testament law. So if he is going to forgive her, well, then he's breaking that Old Testament law. Now we've got a major problem. 2 or 3 witnesses. Remember that. Hold on to that. Now, Jesus knows what they're trying to do. He knows that all they're trying to do is discredit his authority. They're trying to make a mockery of him. Now, notice this is the same standard of 2 or 3 witnesses. In the trial of Jesus, when he standing before Caiaphas, in Matthew 26:57-60, remember, they sought out until they found 2 men that would agree to give a testimony against Jesus. They had to have those 2 or 3 witnesses to find them, prosecute him. So So as Jesus was writing down, let's say he was writing the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not steal. Covet. As he's writing all that, let's he put them back in the forefront of their brains. Let it be a good deal. You think there's a woman down in front of me and you're going to kill her? What are your sins right now? And as he's writing, whatever it was he was writing, as he was writing, their consciences were spinning. So let's take a look at that just for sake of reading. Verse 6, chapter 8. This they said, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground as though he had heard them not. So when they continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said to them, He that is without sin among you, let him cast the first stone at her. And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. And when Jesus lifted himself up and saw none but the woman, notice what's gone. And he said unto her, Woman, where are those thine accusers? 2 or 3 witnesses are gone. Hath no man condemned thee? She said, No man, Lord. Jesus said unto her, Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. Jesus removed all the accusations, all the accusers, even though she was guilty. She was guilty of something. We all are. Jesus is the best example of forgiveness we could have ever asked for. I challenge you in your life. Are you forgiven? Some of us have a reason to be angry, bitter. There's been wrongs done to you individually. Are you ready to forgive? Because if not, why would Jesus ever forgive you? Let's pray. Father, we thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for blessing us, leading us, guiding us. Lord, I ask that you please bless this message, Lord. And if there's anyone here today that's got aught with a brother or got something that they can't let go, Lord, I beg you, work in their hearts and help them to let it go. Maybe it's their own personal past, or maybe it's anger towards someone, Lord. There's all kinds of things it could be. But Lord, we want to serve you in a righteous mind and a righteous heart. We need to be forgiving. Lord, we love you and we thank you for everything that you've provided unto us. You gave your Son the ultimate payment for our sins, the ultimate forgiveness. And Lord, I ask that you give each one of us in here today that same spirit. Because no man anywhere in this world could do us enough wrong to take you away from us. But we sure can be a bad example.